everybody, welcome back. Now I've got a story for you today and it is called Mrs. Honey's Hat, and I've got Mrs. Honey right here to read the story with me, and she's got her hat on. Guess who else has got a hat today? I've also created a hat for my head as well, as you can see, just like Mrs. Honey's hat in the story, as you will see. Let's read it together, shall we? Okay, so let's put Mrs. Honey down right, oh, she's lost her hat, over here. So this is Mrs. Honey's Hat, written and illustrated by Pam Adams. Mrs. Honey had a hat. There's her hat. On Monday, she wore it when she took her grandson Peter to the park. Here's Peter. He's got his bubble gum in his mouth. She bought him some bubble gum and sat on a bench with her knitting. There she is. Peter thought, those feathers would make my arrows fly better. See, he's taking the arrows. So he pulled the feathers off the hat and his bubble gum stuck to the brim. Uh-oh. But Mrs. Honey didn't notice. On Tuesday, Mrs. Honey wore her hat to visit a friend. They sat outside in the shade of a tree and ate cake while they chatted. Here they are, eating all these delicious things. Some birds flew down to pick up the crumbs. Those cherries look good, they chirped. So they flew off with them from Mrs. Honey's hat. One little bird left some eggs behind, right here. But Mrs. Honey, she didn't notice. On Wednesday, Mrs. Honey spent a day at the beach. The sun shone and the sand was hot and the water was perfect. Mrs. Honey felt very happy. Afterwards, Mrs. Honey took off her hat and sat in the sun. A hermit crab thought that shell would make a nice new home. So he scuttled away with the shell and he left some seaweed behind. Can you see him? He's over here and he's taken the shell and left some seaweed. But Mrs. Honey didn't notice. On Thursday, Mrs. Honey picked dandelions to make wine. It was very hard work. She took off her hat and put it on the fence. A cow in the field saw the hat on the fence. Moo, what a beautiful big buttercup, she mooed. She took a mouthful and her bell fell off on Mrs. Honey's hat. But Mrs. Honey didn't notice. On Friday, Mrs. Honey went to see an old castle. Just look at those cobwebs, explained Mrs. Honey. This place could do with a good cleaning. There. Then a big black spider dropped onto her hat. Hurrah, he said. This lace will make a good strong cobweb. Can you see he's right here and he's dropped straight down. So he hurried away with the lace and left all his old webs behind. Oh no. But Mrs. Honey didn't notice. On Saturday, Mrs. Honey took her cat to a cat show. There were all sorts of fine cats, but she hoped that hers would win first prize. I wonder which is Mrs. Honey's hat. A cat, I mean. An alley cat saw Mrs. Honey's hat through the window. That ribbon might help me win a prize, he thought. So he pulled it off from the hat and left some fish bones behind. Ugh! But Mrs. Honey didn't notice. On Sunday, Mrs. Honey went to church. Everyone seemed to be staring at her. Whatever could it be, she wondered. Perhaps it's time I bought a new hat. I don't think she understands what's going on. So after the service, Mrs. Honey hurried home to look in the mirror. Then she noticed the bubble gum, the eggs, the seaweed, the bell, the cobwebs, and the fish bones. Goodness, she exclaimed, I've got a new hat. She wasn't sure that she liked it though. The end. Thank you so much for watching. I hope that you go home and maybe try on a few of your special hats. Maybe you could create one just like Mrs. Honey here. Okay, I will see you next time. See you later.